start. Chapter 1. Love Backwards Prologue. It was not my intention to write about or feed into any sort of racist facet of life in Singapore. What I was merely trying to extrapolate was an acknowledgement of the difference in ideas, beliefs, and cultures. It is said that nobody was created perfect. Hence the reason to overcome these imperfections, or at the very least to strive to overcome these imperfections. However, one might say that these imperfections blended together are as much a part of society as our idealistic utopian plan for the future. Everybody that lives wants something that they can call truly theirs, completely and singly their own. That might be greedy or selfish. Greed, for lack of a more elegant word, for something they believe separates them from the other 5 billion people on the planet. To some, this desire to own or have drive them to do extraordinary things. Some become doctors, lawyers, scientists, engineers, and presidents. To other people, the desire becomes an obsession, and they are driven into negative circumstances. This is not a story about an incredible person doing an unimaginable act. It is a story about an average person trying to have their one thing that separates them from the rest of the world. True love. Love is, according to Shakespeare, something that can feeds thy light's flame with self-substantial fuel, making a famine where abundance lies. Sonnet 1, William Shakespeare. Depravity, or hunger, is probably the highest motivating factor in a person's life. Depravity of love has made more than one person mad with need. It is a conundrum of life to need another person to feed, as Shakespeare wrote. Life's light, and starve without it. It doesn't seem to matter how many love you, because the only one you want does not. I don't think it's a coincidence that love turned backwards is evil. As William Shakespeare wrote in Sonnet 20, a woman's face with nature's own hand painted. Hast thou the master mistress of my passion? A woman's gentle heart, but not acquainted with shifting change, as is false women's fashion. An eye more bright than theirs, less false in rolling, gilding the object whereupon it gazes. A man in hue all hues in his controlling, which steals men's eyes and women's souls amazes. And for a woman wert thou first created, till nature as she wrought thee fell a doting, and by addition me of thee defeated. By adding one thing to my purpose, nothing. 2. Have you ever looked at an eye closely? You can see so many different spots, holes, and different colors. These small imperfections are unnoticed when looked at from a distance. However, these imperfections all combined together make up the overall color. From a distance, most eyes look to be blue or brown. Up close, these same eyes have black, white, yellow, and even brown spots. All the colors of the rainbow. The eyes are said to be the windows to the soul. I don't know what poet made that saying up, nor do I know how many people actually take the time to truly look into their lover's eyes and see these imperfections, or their souls. I've asked myself, many times since my wife Tia died, if I had really known her soul. A bigger question too, if I had seen all the imperfections, would it have changed my mind? I can't feel her now. But a little while ago, when I sat down at this desk writing my thoughts, I could have sworn I smelt her perfume. I realized that I will never be able to say the things I wanted to, but just didn't have the time, moreover, the courage to. Occasionally I still find a long black hair in my clothes or on the floor. It never fails to amaze me how these magical hairs are still around after the owner has been buried for 2 months. I'll pick these hairs up and tie them around my fingers. It's ghostly to think how strong these hairs are. I can tie them around my fingers and not be able to spread those fingers apart. How could her hair be so strong and her body so weak? It's at these times when I realize how much I miss her and how things should have been. That common hair thin thread that keeps a couple bound together. It's so fragile to some, and yet to others it is unbreakable. Sometimes I hate the world. I hate the world with such vehemence, with such violence. I just sit on my couch and shake while my mouth fills full of saliva that tastes like acid and tears well in my eyes. For weeks after Tia died, I couldn't eat or sleep. I lost so much weight that people must have thought I had cancer. When I ate, I was very quick to throw it up. I would go through the whole day with dry heaves. That's where you convulse like you're going to throw up, but nothing comes out. I went through 2 weeks of this routine. When I stopped answering the phone, my brother came to my house. Finding my door locked and my dirty undriven car outside, he called our parents who have the extra key to my place. They found me lying in an icy air-conditioned room completely passed out. The doctor told my family it was from lack of food and sleep. In short, he said that I run out of gas. My doctor prescribed me drugs to sleep when I should, and to settle my stomach so I could eat, but what he couldn't prescribe was something for my broken heart, broken home, and broken life. When you lose the linchpin between your present and your future drifts away from you like a derelict. I definitely didn't care about anything or anyone. I quit my job as a teacher, mostly because they were going to fire me anyway. I took to drinking in the morning. A couple of hard gin and tonics in the morning made me numb. It was a sort of artificial happiness. At lunch, I would mix some alcohol with my coffee. There's no doubt my teaching suffered. My appearance suffered. I stopped shaving every day. It's not that I consciously wanted to, it's just that I forgot to. My shirts were seldom ironed. I became lazy with marking my students' work. Many times I just assigning a grade to the paper without reading it through. The teaching staff knew the pain I was in, as did my students. I guess this was the reason for their countenance and overlooking my indiscretions for so long. But the fact remained, I wasn't doing my job. The straw that broke the camel's back, metaphorically speaking, was a particularly numb day the second week of a new class. I started to notice one of my students. I'm not sure whether I noticed her noticing me, or because I noticed her and she started flirting with me. She was a pretty girl, tall, not really outgoing or popular, but she looked old for her age. She was always the last to leave the class, the first to arrive. Although she was getting A's, she was always complaining that she needed extra help. On a late afternoon class, she stayed after class to ask me some questions. The questions were seemingly obvious questions, stuff that she already knew. I didn't mind. It was nice to have the attention of a young, pretty girl again. In many ways she reminded me of my wife, not by her looks but rather her mannerisms. She would do things like pull her long hair to one side and leave the other side of her neck bare. Also, she would smile only with her top lip, leaving her bottom lip covering her teeth. She, like Tia, would also wear loose-fitting tops as to self-consciously not call attention to her small breasts. That pivotal day when we were going over some of her problems, I touched her hair. I don't know what I was thinking. It seemed like such a natural, affectionate thing to do, but it was neither natural nor affectionate in her eyes. I'll never forget the look of shock on her face. I thought the feelings were reciprocal. I needed her, she wanted me. In one look, the cold hard reality slapped me in the face. She didn't want me. I was a disgusting, pitiful old man who was obviously straddling the idea of becoming a pedophile. I quit the next day. Well, not on paper. I called in sick the next morning. I couldn't tolerate those young innocent eyes looking at me with disgust. My sick day turned into a sick week. With no more responsibility, there was nothing really stopping me from drinking, was there? So I did, a lot. On Sunday I woke up and looked at myself in the mirror. Black circles under my eyes. My teeth were yellow and my hair was long and unkempt. I looked like Anwar after his first week in a Malaysian prison, one of the undead. On Monday the school called me. They wanted me to come in and talk. I knew that they wanted to fire me or make guarantees about my performance. I told Mrs. Ong, the receptionist, that I would hand in my resignation tomorrow. I tried to stay sober on Monday. Checking my messages, I realized that my life was in danger. My brother had left me 5 messages. I'd better call him or he was going to come over and kick my ass. My older brother Edward is my antithesis in almost every account. He takes after my father. My father is an American and my mother is a Chinese Singaporean. I have spent my entire life in his shadow. Tall, light brown hair and blue eyes. He's a good-looking kid and gets more ass than a public toilet seat. I'm not saying that getting girls is how to measure a man's value. The fact is that he has a great job as well. He's a stockbroker making stupid money while other stockbrokers are starving. I don't know how he does it. I, on the other hand, don't make stupid money. My grades through university were always better than his. But Then who cares about grades? I married the first girl I fell in love with. Incidentally, she was also the first girl I made love to. My brother was so adamant against me getting married. He organized, as he called it, an emergency dinner. Just the boys. My father and brother tried to talk me out of it. Well, my brother did. My father just sat back and watched. I think he was curious as to how I would react towards Edward's badgering. I didn't budge, not 1 inch. At the end of 3-hour dinner, I had their blessing. They would support me, right or wrong, as my brother put it. I'm not saying that my marriage was flawless. I was young, 24, a fresh graduate from my teacher's program at NUS. She was 22, on her last year of her business program. Tia was beautiful. She was tall and slender, very delicate. She could speak almost perfect Chinese even though she was Japanese. Her father died fairly young, and her mother moved back to Japan. Tia was old enough and hard-headed enough that she was going to stay in Singapore against her mother's wishes. She had a scholarship at NUS, so that was all the justification she needed. She hung out with a fast crowd. I met her at university, an English class that she was taking to boost her grades. Tia had heard that everyone got A's in English. She was, fortunately for me, wrong. You see, English was and is my class. I had the highest marks in the class. It was one of the only classes that I felt comfortable enough that I could talk and ask questions. I even cracked the odd joke. It wasn't long before I noticed her. She took my breath away. Long, dark hair, the brightest eyes I had ever seen. They were like little black mirrors. I don't know if it was fate or luck, but she asked me for help. Would I help? Of course I would. Hell, one smile from Tia and I would have crawled through a mile of broken glass. I started plotting ways that I could meet with her more often for longer periods of time. We became friends. I wasn't really her type. She liked mostly Angmos. Whenever we went for coffee to discuss the paper she was writing, guys were always saying hello and how's it going, Tia? She would always give them a big flirtatious smile. I remember how jealous I was of these knuckleheads. The night before our English final exam, I was so buzzed on coffee and a cigarette that she offered me. I told her that I was a virgin. She laughed out loud, thinking I had made one of my rare jokes. Seeing the hurt in my eyes, she apologized. She then said something that I'll never forget. Well, that's something we are going to remedy, aren't we?